Hello and welcome to another interview with Just in Time Worlds. Today I am talking to Roberto, who
No
is
problem.
my cover book artist. Roberto, won't you introduce yourself for the viewers?
Okay, well, I'm a comic book illustrator and I've been working in comics since 2003, I think. And I've been working for publishers in Argentina, where I'm from, Italy, France, and the US.
Why don't you walk us, because I've never spoken to a comic book artist, so I'm quite interested in what is the actual process of art in a comic book? Do you get a script? How does it work?
Yes, mostly the comic starts with a script. I don't write my own scripts, so I work with sometimes directly with the writer, and sometimes I just got the script from the editor. And then the first thing is to read it all, and the next step is to start like making doodles in the side of the script, like is the first translation from the script to images are just little doodles on the side, and that's where I'm starting to imagine the scene, and then I put that in another paper, but still keep it small, designing the whole page, composing all the scribbles, the doodles of the action into the page, so I can read it, follow the action through all the page, and make a composition that it's nice to see and to read. And then I go to the page. I used to do it on paper, and now I do it all on Clip Studio, a software for comic books.
Okay. Do you use any specific hardware? I mean, do you use a specific kind of tablet or anything like that?
Yes, I use a Cintiq, a Wacom Cintiq tablet.
Okay.
It's a monitor that you can draw on it.
For example, when we were doing the art for my book, including, the castle of Rocaille and so on. So I gave you obviously a very verbal description of the scenes because I'm not any kind of artist. How do you go about translating that into a piece of world building?
The first thing I start remark the things that are interesting or that are very visual. So if the castle is red, so I underline that, and other things like that. And then I start research for documentation, graphic documentation, like pictures of castles or mountains or skies or wherever it is. So I can nourish my imagination with more visual things. And then I start doing sketches for the composition, and that's what I sent to you the first time. Those like several options of what I want to work with.
If you guys look at the screen now, I will put some images of that onto the screen to show you the process that we went through in the creation of some of these images. So in the comic book world, the writing has to be very condensed. And a lot of what the authors depend on in comic books is the visual look of the place. Whereas we would say in prose, we would describe a city sometimes in paragraphs. In a comic book, you show it in a panel or two. How much detail do you get, and do you work with the authors to kind of work through the process of designing that city? How does that collaboration actually work out?
Well, that depends much on the relation with the writer and the property you're working on. So if you're working for DC Comics, there is a lot of information maybe about Metropolis or Gotham or something like that. So maybe the description in the script is not too long. It's just there in Gotham, and that's it. You have to figure it out. And if you're developing the whole thing, like you're inventing all. You start like concept sketches first, and you talk with the writer, and so on. It's a interchange, like
you exchange ideas. Yeah.
Yes, that you go for with several iterations.
Yeah. Speaking of DC Comics, I know that you did some work for them. How constrained is that in terms of character drawing? I mean, if you're drawing Superman, I'm assuming you pretty much like, this is the way you draw him.
Yes, I did Adventures of Superman, and it was for a miniseries, very specific. So I did in 2015, but it was the Superman of the 80s. So I had it to base the design of that Superman from, I think it was Kurt Swan, a draftman from that era. The Superman from the Infinite Crisis.
Yeah.
No, sorry. The Infinite Crisis was drawn by George Perez, but they asked me for base the structure is like big chest Superman from Kurt Swan.
Okay, from that time period. So
yes.
So you get a very detailed kind of, when you're working for a big guy like DC Comics, it's obviously you're very constrained in what you produce.
Yes.
How much world building do you get to do in comics? I mean, I assume in DC it's very constrained, but in the more indie comics, do you get to come up with details based on what you think it should look like, or what would be visually pleasing?
Yes. Yeah. For France, I work with a few series that I didn't start myself. So the world was already set, but it's set, but it's not constrained. It's not like something already done and that's it. So I could add some things to those series. One is called the Night Dragons. It's they are female knights that fight dragons in
very cool
little clothes.
Link to that will be in the comments below, guys. Do you get to like come up with details of what a neighborhood looks like, what a landscape looks like, all of those kinds of details? Is that part of the world building that you do from a visual perspective?
Yeah, well, when the series is already started, I have the previous books, so there is no much detail, just looking of the previous artwork. When right now I'm working with a friend. We are developing a new series that we hope we get a publisher soon, and we are building everything from the vehicles, the cities, the characters. It's really fun to do that.
So what is your favorite part in creating fantasy art?
I think my favorite part, besides drawing, it's like the relationship with the writer, to have something with whom you can share the creative process. That's very nice for me.
I must admit that I really enjoyed our collaboration on my cover art. It was a very fun part of the whole publishing process. So tell us a little bit about this project that you're working on, that you're hoping to find a publisher for.
It's a fantasy story where the universe, the different planets with aliens, it's connected through the oceans. So in the 15th century, they traveled to another worlds with submarines. It's previous to the submarines because it's in 15th century. So the aliens are the ones who do the submarine thing, and there is a girl trapped in one of those worlds. And she's like a slave in one of these alien worlds, and she's trying to find a way to go back to Earth.
That sounds like a great premise.
Yeah, and it's really fun because there is a lot of extraterrestrials, alien ships with medieval design. So it's
flying castles.
Right, something like that. Yeah, and
that's very
a lot
cool.
of like Venice-like cities and water everywhere.
Yeah, water I've heard looks great in images and adds like a lot of good elements.
Yeah, waves, everything.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
I have a picture in my portfolio where is the main character is fighting like a girl with tentacles.
Yeah.
I'll give you the link later. I don't know if that's gonna stay to the end in the book, but was one of the first designs for that project.
Yeah. So if guys, there's an Instagram link down below to Roberto's Instagram. If you follow him there, also to his shop where you can buy any of his art. And speaking of your art, the piece of art that made me fall in love with your art is the one where you have the zombie face underneath the ship with the you know, with the patchwork face and the ship on the ice. So
yes.
And I'll put that on the screen now. And what is the story behind that piece of art?
That was a cover for Frankenstein. I was taking a class on illustration, and that was one of the projects. The idea of the project was to do something with 3 words. What was snap, crackle, and pop. So you could do the 3 or take one of the words and do something like that. So I started doing several ideas, and the crackle of the ice was the first idea. So I fusioned that with the idea of a scar, and that remembered me of the beginning and end of Frankenstein, the story of Frankenstein.
Yeah.
And a book that I love too. So I just, that idea just come to mind, and I draw it, and then I develop it, and that you saw the end result. It's painted with gouache.
So are there any closing thoughts about using the visual medium in terms of world building that you think would be good for people to know about, to think about when they're thinking about art? Comic books, cover art, any of those elements, are there things that people should think about when they, you know, talk to an artist? Closing thoughts around world building?
A good thing to do is pick an artist that you like and trust them. Don't be like micromanagement. Don't do that. You choose them because you like what they do. So trust them. They will deliver something that you will like. Be clear about what you want and enjoy the process.
I have certainly enjoyed our collaboration, and I'm looking forward to a whole lot more.